Falcon and Winter Soldier finally dropped. All the episodes are out, and now Disney Plus released their Avengers Assemble thing. So it's like behind the scenes and cool directorial stuff and acting stuff, but they mentioned visual effects, and it was so cool to see them do traditional VFX. And it's also interesting, John, because they use Stagecraft for the Mandalorian, right? And it looks incredible, and they do such good work with it and stuff. And it's like, wait, why aren't they using it for the Marvel shows? Is it just like a industrial light and magic thing, or?
I think what's happening is Disney's a huge company, obviously. They might own Industrial Light and Magic, but Industrial Light and Magic, from the instructors that I had when I was in school that worked there, and some friends that I know that I used to work with and went to school with have worked there. And they were saying, Industrial Light and Magic, it's basically run like a bunch of different companies. Every single project they're working on, say if they're working on the Avengers, and let's just throw out, say they're working on Indiana Jones or whatever, those are treated like completely separate companies. They don't talk to each other really. Their budgets are all different. Their finances are all different. So based on Falcon and Winter Soldier, it might be a completely different thing, having no contact or anything to do with even other Disney properties. And I'm not sure if that's the case, but that may be something's going on.
Nice. And now we're going to jump into it. Some VFX.
Hey everyone, welcome back to AsArt with Nick and John. Obviously, we're going to talk about Falcon and Winter Soldier today. We do all kinds of visual effects breakdowns, episode reviews, deepfakes, everything to think about. So check out AsArt, the audio and video links to the different type of content we create.
Okay, so John, I love when anyone does behind the scenes stuff, right? The reason why I even got into visual effects is because of Lord of the Rings extended edition making of videos. It's like 20 hours of making of videos, and I was like, I want to make movies and stuff. And I love this stuff. I wish there was more of it. And I know it feels like we're getting less now because it's not on DVDs and it's on the internet, but it's fine. At least we're getting it still. At least it's not completely removed. And they're just like, peace.
Yeah, it's something that Nick and I have talked about, not necessarily in preparation for this episode, but it is odd because one of the big selling features, especially from early DVDs and when you had the disc wars for Blu-ray and HD DVD at the time, is who's going to have better special features and things like that. And you used to pay more, but you get a huge amount of special features, especially when it came to Lord of the Rings, like Nick was saying. Now that everything's streaming and online, certain shows have behind the scenes, but we're not getting nearly as much. And when you get them is different as well. HBO Max, they tend to have them after the episode. They go directly into it. For Disney Plus, it seems like they're waiting until the end of the season before they actually put that stuff together. So it's kind of disappointing we're not getting as much of that. Different times, I guess.
Exactly. It is different times. So let's talk about some cool stuff that they did, right? Obviously, Falcon's a flying character, and it's so cool to see the way that they did the flying. And you even notice that they don't even put the glass in because they add the reflection later and stuff like that, just to add into the comps. It looks fantastic. I mean, Disney's just been knocking it out of the park with Marvel VFX overall. I mean, they do such a good job. Like, is it the best VFX? No, because it's like a TV show. Like, it's not like 100% like like Avengers Endgame, like full on VFX stuff, but it looks so good. Like, for the shows and what they're doing, it looks incredible.
I was going to say, for me, one of the biggest things is not every shot or every episode of these Disney Plus things are going to be the quality of Avengers Endgame, but all the effects are very consistent. If you had one shot that looked as good as, the best shot in Avengers Endgame, and then you have some lower end shots, that's what really throws you out of it. When everything's consistent shot to shot, then everything works wonderfully. But what's most impressive to me in a lot of modern visual effects movies, not just Disney Marvel stuff, is that the quantity of visual effects shots are ridiculous. And now they're getting much, much more and more complex as well.
Yes, no, they are. And they break down this whole truck sequence, right? And they talk about, like, at first they had these plans and how important is previs for this stuff. Like, like just previs, and then like the stunt previs, and then like the rough comping just to make sure it's going to work. And then they go and they like shoot it. Like, it's amazing how much actually goes into these action sequences, and it really pays off because they're great action sequences, and it's because of the planning and stuff. You have to plan that stuff out. That's why, like, Lord of the Rings, like the first one, they really planned out the movie, right? So the action sequences and the battles were really planned out ahead of time, where The Hobbit, it was like last minute. They were planning it while they were building the sets and shooting. You could just tell it didn't have the same magic that Lord of the Rings had and Return of the King and stuff like that. Planning is everything when it comes to VFX, stunt coordination, all that stuff. And it was just funny because it reminded me, John, of a movie I worked on, Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter. There was a sequence where there's a train and they're fighting on top of the train. And obviously we're not going to put actors on a real train and have them fight vampires on top of the train and stuff. But I just remember like heavy fog to hide the background. And what's just so crazy is like a lot of Marvel's VFX are done in full daylight. And it's just like, it's this them like flexing.
Well, you know what, so Nick had put the shot sequences referencing in Dropbox so I could review it beforehand. And you know what, for that context of that type of movie, it works perfectly. It's very kind of surreal and fighting vampires, and it is kind of otherworldly. So that works fine for that. For Endgame, that might have, or I'm sorry, for Falcon and Winter Soldier, that probably felt a little bit out of place, especially when they're fighting super soldiers, not like some vampires or anything like that.
Same thing.
So they needed to do something different.
I'm joking. No. They're not the same thing. They're completely different. But I just thought like it was so cool. Like the whole sequence. If you guys get a chance, go to Disney Plus. They have, it's called, I think, Avengers Assemble, and they show the behind the scenes and they really break it down and stuff. And I just have been loving the quality of the Marvel stuff. Like VFX wise, it's so good. And then like me personally, I enjoyed the Winter Soldier story too. And it's great when the VFX can complement the story. That's one thing John always brings up. And I also agree with him is how important VFX is to storytelling too, right? Because you have to make sure it works with the storytelling. You can't just have like a big action sequence, and if it doesn't progress story or show like team building and like in the fight too and stuff, like they just doing a good job. Congrats. And it was also really cool too that they mentioned in the thing, because of the pandemic hit halfway through shooting, they actually they were actually able to take a step back and re-look at their footage. So if they wanted to change things to make a better story, which I thought was cool that they used something like that to their advantage to improving the quality, which is so cool to see someone that cares so much about what they're working on to want to make it the best.
Yeah, and you know, it's interesting too, when we think of previs, storyboards, animatics, whatever it is, Nick and I, since we come from the post-production industry, we're usually thinking about it in regards to visual effects and things like that. But Nick mentioned earlier, I think it's a very valid point, that when you're talking about things like what stunts are they going to work on, what fight choreography do the actors have to learn, that's a big thing as well that I don't always think of, because it's not something I've ever been involved in, but that's a big part of that as well. It's just cool that all these are being covered by previs, whether it's animatics, storyboard, whatever it is. And the cool thing about that is even if you're, like Nick was saying, even if you're in quarantine, pandemic, crazy, you know, the thick of it, you can still work on previs remotely. That's something that you can collaborate back and forth. It doesn't really cost much money. You don't have actors on set. So it's a really, really cool thing. They're able to really dig into that more and more. And something that Nick was saying as well is how well and how much work goes into choreography for these Marvel series. We just did an episode on a movie review with Chris and Kyle and Nick and myself, of course, on this new Mortal Kombat 2021 movie. And one thing Chris was saying is, he goes, it was really fun, but for a game or a movie that's basically based off of a fighting game, he goes, I feel like the Marvel movies and a lot of other things actually did fighting better. But we're seeing how much time and choreography went into their things for the Marvel, and even what you consider, at least what most people consider, their little brothers from the film screen. In these Disney Plus, and you still see all the work that went into that. Yeah,
totally. Chris, if you guys haven't checked that out, it's a great conversation. There's even a fun facts with Kyle breakdown section where he just spills off facts, which is just fantastic.
It was a fun episode for sure. Yeah. And you know, one of the effects that I really liked they did is they were talking about the skydiving scenes where they're flying around, things like, one is you have George St. Pierre, who played a villain in the first Winter Soldier, famous MMA fighter who's now retired. He's back in this, which is really fun to see. But having them skydiving, it's cool how they're putting all the techniques together. They have background replacement, then they have real actors that are doing real people that are doing the skydiving with the wingsuits. And they're doing face replacements as well. And it's cool because, you know, they're wearing the kind of hoods that give you a natural frame. And so it's much easier for them to replace the faces because they have a perfect kind of frame to put it in.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean it's easy, but it's easy if you had to do a full face replacement and things like that. So it's really cool how they're saying they're taking basically everything out of the bag of tricks in order to do these shots, aside from stagecraft, of course. But for these sequences where you have so much going on, I just love the idea that they actually got really cool skydiving with wingsuits, and they actually used those verbatim shots in certain sections. Yes. Because they had black magic cameras. I think they're probably called the, was it not the pocket cinema cameras,
but the micro cinema
cameras. Yeah. They don't even have a screen, but they're just really high quality film cameras.
It's like high quality film GoPro cameras.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. I mean, they're bigger than GoPros, but basically they are those level of cameras. Yeah.
Well, if you guys like VFX stuff, we covered King Kong or Godzilla versus Kong VFX, to, oh my gosh, probably my favorite one, Call of the Wild, man. We had a fun time talking about the dog and stuff like that, to one of our favorites, which is The Mandalorian. We're huge Star Wars fans, and we love what they're doing with the stagecraft and also with green screen and the not old school. I hate that we're calling it old school now because of stagecraft, but like traditional VFX. Using the green screen and having props and all that good stuff too. So,
all right, you guys. So let us know if you've watched the behind the scenes, or of course, if you watched Falcon and Winter Soldier, what you thought of it. If you thought the effects were a step down from the film equivalents, or if you felt that since the quality was basically consistent for the episodes, that you never thought about it at all. If you have other content you'd like us to cover as far as Falcon and Winter Soldier, if you've seen other behind the scenes aside from the Disney Plus, let us know. We'd love to view those as well. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you on the next AsArt.